Welcome to the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-hosts, Dr. Steve Jeffs and Erwin de Grave. Each episode, we bring you expert guests and transformative coaching insights. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-host, Dr. Steve Jeffs, and myself, Erwin de Grave. And today we have the pleasure to talk to Marcy Nelson-Garrison. Hello, Marcy. How are you doing?
Hello, you guys. Hello, everyone out there.
And hello, Steve. Welcome as well. So, Marcy, we could try to introduce you, but you're the person who knows yourself much better than we do. So, who is Marcy Nelson-Garrison? How did she got in coaching? What she does today? Yeah.
How did I get into coaching? Okay, now everyone probably has one of those stories like this, right?
Yeah.
Where you wear a lot of different hats throughout your life. And I actually trained as a psychologist with an interest in art therapy, and
Oh.
I ended up doing that. I was just at a call center doing counseling and assessment and referral and all of that on a phone,
Oh.
which is not what I had envisioned when I went back to school, because I worked in advertising before that, when I went back to school for psychology. So it prepared me perfectly for coaching because I already got the whole being on the phone and all the things you can hear on the phone that you don't always hear when you're in person, because you can
Yeah.
get distracted by the visuals. Anyway, I can. So I did that for a number of years, and it was good, but I hired a coach. Well, first of all, I met a coach, and she came from psychology too, and she was so excited about it. It's like, I don't feel that kind of excitement with what I'm doing. I want that. So first I hired her for a while, and then then I went through the training at CTI, and it was so empowering to see what can happen when you let go of diagnosing people and thinking in terms of treatment and that there's something wrong with them. People are actually a lot healthier than they think they are. So, although that was something my family, when you're a psychologist and you talk to someone, they think, oh, she's going to think I'm crazy. She's going to think something's wrong with me. And really, the truth is they're more normal than they think they are. So, but coaching was just so exciting to me, to work with people in the moment that have dreams. And out of I went through CTI leadership program. Out of that is where the Coaching Toys store started. It was kind of my leadership project. And that came about. I mean, coaching triggered my creativity more than counseling did. And I started having ideas for products. And then I started wondering if other people in the world were creating products, and I just thought, oh, they are. Here's someone creating something. Here's someone creating something. And it's like, can I bring them all together so that coaches can find these cool tools? The store it evolved. The store is still going. That was like 20 years ago,
Wow.
at least, when it started. But because I reviewed products for Choice magazine, I kept getting asked about creating products and started teaching people about creating products. So that's how my coaching business sort of shifted and evolved into more teaching and mentoring. And my signature program is the Card Deck Masterclass, which teaches people how to create a card deck for their business. And we sell a lot of card decks in the store. And so I would have people asking about that. And initially I would bring in experts, and then pretty soon it's like, I know this. I know this stuff. I've created a card deck. I worked in advertising. I understand print. I can do this. And so that started to grow my business. And then also, as you said, Erwin, being a business coach, all, it's all tied in. Card
Mm,
decks are like maybe their first product or their second, but you need to build a business around that. And how do you leverage it so you can create programs? And
mm,
there's so many things you can do once you get your creativity in motion around your business.
mm. Yeah.
So
Oh.
that in a nutshell has been my journey. It keeps
Well, it's a
evolving.
long journey, I see from
It's,
what I hear. And for me, one thing that strikes really, and you've been saying that word, is creativity. And certainly
yeah,
coming from advertising, which needs to be very creative. Call center is less creative, but anyway. But then
right.
creating the product, the card deck, and that, and helping people to create card decks, but also products. I think you must be a very creative person.
I am. I've been an artist since probably fourth grade
Oh,
or
right.
sooner. So that's always been a part of my life. Um, and what I've learned between the psychology and the coaching and the art
Mhm.
is um, just how we don't use all of our brain. I mean, we creativity gets short shrifted all the time. It's kind of like if it's linear and if it's concrete, it's good. I'll build my business that way. And when people leave out the creative part, it just starts to look like everybody else.
Hmm.
And the creative thing is where you find your most authentic expression. And and it's scary sometimes for people too. I think when people take my card deck class, they go, well, this went deeper than I thought it was gonna go. Yeah, because you're finding your voice.
Hmm.
And I keep encouraging them, don't quote other people, quote yourself.
Yeah.
If they're going to use quotes, not everyone does, but it's a real journey for them. And I just think if I mean, creativity is great for, I love making art
Mhm.
and having things that are beautiful or people like, but creativity in service of transformation is one of the most powerful things out there. And it's like, what do I want to say about this? Creativity requires stimulus. And so I know how to provide a lot of that, which is kind of my style of coaching. I bring in lots and lots of creative stimulus
Hmm.
and created a product called image prompts
Yeah.
so that people can answer questions using pictures.
Oh.
So it's a slide, maybe 12 pictures, and like, which picture most reflects your future self?
Oh.
And then you can kind of explore, have them look at the picture a little bit more. What's the mood? What's the energy? Where does it take you? Is there a story? And then if this picture could talk, what would it tell you? And so, what happens when people use images to get in touch with different parts of themselves or answer even, I use it, you're going to love this, or when I use it to help people understand their ideal clients through images because it takes them out of their head where they get so stuck.
Well, it is. It is like when people go and you see paintings in a museum, it's also the same. What's the story that it tells?
Well,
It's exactly the same what you're saying.
yeah,
What is that image telling you? And as far as you look at an image and someone looks at it, if that image is really generating that energetic positive side, or it's more
right.
maybe another image that is getting them more. And why is more that image than that image?
Yeah. I can have people pick the same image in a group setting, but they get very different interpretations from it.
Uh,
So it's just really interesting um, to work with the images. There's just,
mm,
I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever had a really deep transformational experience without it in some way, including either metaphor or the senses, embodying it in some way.
mm,
And I have a story. This is my mother tree story I told you earlier.
Well, tell me, tell me.
But I was a reluctant leader going through a leadership program. I kind of hid in the shadows. And it was probably the last retreat, and we just walked a labyrinth. And I sort of stepped back into the shadows. And as I was there, I looked up and I saw 12 condors in the mother tree. And they were all had their wings out, drying them in the sun, like these 12 huge birds. And I instinctively mimicked them.
Mm.
And I then stepped into the sun. It was such a powerful moment for me that became the metaphor of stepping into the light, being willing to be seen. And it shifted my whole experience, but it was the metaphor and I can take myself back there just by telling this story. And that's what you can do for clients when you have an experience that involves a metaphor. You can come back to it regularly and get those emotions that are connected to that metaphor activated again, and that can be so helpful.
Mhm. Would you create with clients or with coaches um, to make them their own picture? So that could be like the metaphor that you're telling. So they're telling a story and creating that, they create that image and then they can come back to it.
They they could. There's a lot of ways they could find metaphors. Um, I mean, you probably experienced this, Jeff, at leadership where you or Steve, where you go for a walk and you find something in nature. That's a great way to have people just go for a walk and find a symbol for whatever it is you're talking about in your coaching or in your group process. You can have them find images. You can have them draw cards from a card deck, of course. I mean, there's just a lot of ways to bring creative stimulus in to get people out of their heads and thinking a little bit differently about something.
What what is important about stimulus and what makes a good one?
I really believe that creativity requires stimulus. You can't just sit there and go, I'm going to be creative now. It's like, and hope something pops in. But if something can take you, it's like putting two things together that weren't together before,
Mm.
creates something new. And so the stimulus, whether it's images or whether it's a story in a magazine, that'll all of a sudden click. Like, what does this have to do with this thing I'm working on? And that combination, which weren't put together before, is what will create a new idea or a new approach.
Mm.
Yeah, I really love
And
that.
yeah. And the other thing, the right brain processes differently. I get a little itch. The left brain is a really good sensor. We are so well trained in cognitive, linear, concrete thinking. And so it's really easy for us to censor things. Whereas the right brain stuff, music, images, nature, movement, all of those kind of right brain things, it's a different language. And our brain just doesn't censor as easily, so more stuff surfaces. And that's pretty exciting because you'll go, I never thought of it that way before. Every coach loves to hear that, right? You can
Absolutely.
do it with an open-ended question, but boy, if you do it with some right brain stimulus, it could be even deeper.
Absolutely. I think for me, this is one of the questions that I hear a lot of coaches asking. I love this creativity stuff. I love working with images and moving the body, but my clients don't want to do it, or they're not creative, or they don't have work with metaphor, or they can't see pictures. And I think the key thing that I'm hearing is, things don't emerge out of a vacuum. Without a reason to be creative, there's no reason to be creative. And so we're not. And a lot of us, I think from what I'm hearing, censor the stimulus around us so that we can have that linear, focused view that feels more familiar.
Mhm.
And for us as coaches to be willing to ask weird questions,
Yeah.
weird from the logical sense, not weird in the holistic
Right,
sense.
right.
You know, you referenced, walk around the forest, walk around your office, find something that represents this. And like, there's
Yes,
no right answer, but that becomes the start of a conversation. And I
it
think
does.
that becomes a stimulus for a new direction.
Yeah, and it'll be different kinds of thoughts than if you would just ask a concrete question. Like, what would your future self say to you today? You're going to get one answer. If you do it through a picture or a symbol, you're going to
Mm.
get a different answer. And it's often richer.
We're meaning creating machines. And I love
Yes,
that we start to build different patterns, and different patterns tell a different story. Um,
yes.
I also want to come back and highlight something you said before. Um, and I'm going to ask you the opposite question. So you gave an example of using images in what sounded like a virtual space where you can have a presentation, have different images up on the screen. I love that. I'm old school. I love working with cards. But for those people that aren't working a lot in 3 dimensions anymore, or haven't worked with clients in 3 dimensions, how could you bring physical cards into a coaching conversation?
Okay, there's a few ways I do it because I'll draw cards in a session.
You mean
Um,
like in a session, just draw some
yeah, if
stuff?
you're doing a Zoom session, there's a way to bring a card deck in.
Okay.
And so one of the simplest ways I do, if it's a group, I'll just show them the decks. Like I'm going to cut it into 3 piles, and then I do that. Then I show them each of the piles and say, "Someone tell me which pile to pick," and someone will say, "Middle one." Okay, and then someone else give me a number, and then I'll count down to that number. So that's the card we draw. I've also done it where I just spread them. If it's a private client, I'm spreading the card deck out in front of me from left to right. I'm going to move my hand slowly from left to right. And I want you to we'll just breathe and tune in together, and you tell me when to pick.
Love it.
And so that's really, you got to connect on the intuitive level and just say, I'm starting now and I'm not a quarter of the way through, just let them feel into it and say, now, okay, we got it. So those are a few ways I do it.
I love that. And in 3 dimensions, when we're in the same room, you can actually lay them out. You can give
Oh
them
yeah,
back. You
which is
can.
great.
I love having clients touching and physically engaging with tools like,
Right.
especially if it gets them up and moving. We had an executive retreat recently, the CEO and the executive team, and we had hundreds and hundreds of images laid out across the tables, and their job was a purpose activity. And their job was then to look through them and find the 2 images that spoke to them around and represented their purpose. And then
Nice.
there were some people that just picked, and there were some people that took a long time and they tested and they tasted the different images. But to see people at the end then have that conversation and go, let me show you what I've picked and why I've picked them,
Yeah,
and to watch the different conversation emerge through the
exactly.
medium, it's like goosebumps just thinking about it.
It is. It is. And you mentioned earlier that sometimes people go, well, I'm not creative, and they might not want to do the exercise. It's kind of like improv. You have to sell it. You have to stand in that place of absolutely believing this is going to make a difference for them. And then they'll go for it. But they're just scared. It's new. They've never done it before and don't quite trust it. I have only had one person in all of my groups, and she's in a group now. When I ever do a guided visualization, she never gets anything. And I think that's more telling about her state than it is about whether she's creative or not, because she is creative. So, sometimes you can learn from the resistance
Mhm.
that's showing up, and you can explore that. Because we don't censor, I think we're afraid of what might show up. And you
Absolutely.
don't have as much control, right?
Scary place. How do you define creativity? Personal definition, not an academic one.
Yeah. I really think it's just when you bring two things together that have never been together before, and a new idea explodes out of that. I think that's creativity.
Well, I've from the beginning, from our chat that we have, this one word that's coming back all the time, and that's innovation.
Yes.
Because and certainly more in a professional in a business environment, but also in personal. Basically, creativity. When I listen to it, when I listen to you, it's like innovating, because innovation is basically bringing two or different things together that didn't exist, and we innovate. As you said,
Yeah.
we need to be creative. Business need to innovate to continue growing and be there. And that is what that word is like hitting
Yes.
my brain and saying, I need to say it.
Well, and business likes the word innovation much better than creativity because they immediately think grade school drawing or making art or, that kind of thing. Um, so I think it's just that tapping into that other part of ourselves and bringing it forward as much as the linear concrete thinking part, because we need them both.
Yeah.
To be honest, and they can inform each other. And even the creative, innovative side, at some point, you have to bring your concrete, linear mind to it. It's like to help shape it and turn it into something that's really valuable. So,
Yeah. I really love that definition. I remember having a conversation with a senior leader who said, I'm not creative. And, a little bit of probing, and the way that they were defining creativity was to have a new idea, to have created something new, like out of nothing almost. And when we kind of had a look, what they were really good at was taking an idea from here and applying it in a different context.
oh, that's creative.
And that's what I said. I said, oh, are you kidding me?
Mhm.
For you, it's an old idea. But in this context, it's not something they ever would have thought about.
Right.
That's as creative as, Steve Jobs with a touch screen that no one's ever thought about. Both of those are really important. And as
Right.
soon as you started to go, oh yeah, through that definition, I am really creative. And now I can give myself more permission and let it flow. And I think there's something about that permission and that safety
Yeah.
that just often requires
Yes.
practice, I think.
Yeah. Safety's important. Because I'm also doing art again, there's some interesting parallels because, to getting back into art requires experimenting. It requires letting go of the outcome, non-attachment to it being good. um, and they're all good rules that can help when you're working with clients around creative thinking. Um, and sometimes those things that fail actually have a seed in them of the next thing that'll get created. And it's just really looking at each failure because people don't like to fail, but if you can find that, there's always some element of the failure that's actually good. Like in art, it could like, this is a terrible painting, but I really like what's happening right here. How can I take that out and expand it into a new piece? So it's using that as a kind of a stepping stone to bring creativity to looking at failure or looking at obstacles or looking at things that aren't working well. I invented an exercise with some friends a long time ago using card decks. I don't know, this might be a tangent, but it was called bridge belief because, it's like find an image that represents your current belief about something and then find the image that represents the belief of where you want to be with that thing. So you have these two images. Then you talk about each, the big vision over here, and here's where I'm kind of stuck and it's not working. You find a bridge belief, find one that's in the middle. And that bridge belief can actually help, um, because sometimes it's hard to go from it's icky to, oh my God, it's the best it could be. And you can take the steps and shoot for the middle. And then from the middle, you can shoot for the high, So that was sort of a fun way we came up to play with cards. It works with card decks that are visual,
Yeah,
that usually have images.
that's really cool. I love the simplicity and yet the genius of that. Um, that sounds really fun, actually. Hey, what role does fun play in creativity?
Um, oh, a lot, because I think that getting over serious is up here. When you when you get in your head and you're trying to figure it out, work hard, you're up here. So fun, it's like how to come to it with beginner's mind and a lighter attitude and play, because creativity is very connected to play. Intuition is connected to play. So all of those sort of weave together, and being able to um, just enjoy the process. And I think, years ago, I went through, Julia Cameron had the Artist's Way book. And the very first thing was you got to write yourself a permission slip that you're going to be able to just show up and play and not put all this pressure on yourself, because pressure will kill creativity. Fear will kill creativity, a lot of those things. So,
I like that permission part because it's a lot, because as you said, many people try to be creative, but being
yes.
creative doesn't work at all. It's what I say. It's like people say, "Well, have a coffee. Do you try to drink it or do you drink it?" It's like, and it's like creative being just saying, "I give myself the permission, and I need to give myself the permission to be able to create, because if I put any limits to what I can or cannot do in my creativity or in the process, at the end it's not going to work because I'm putting limits on it, you know? So, and fun in that sense of everything is allowed, and and being that fun part is really important.
Yeah.
But giving permission, I think, as
I
well.
think that's kind of one of the rules in just general brainstorming, is that everything goes in the beginning. No critic, because you never know when one really silly idea from one person is going to trigger a genius idea from someone else, and that's the stimulus piece in brainstorming.
Mm.
And you have to give yourself permission in that setting to not immediately go to, that won't work. Here's why.
Mm.
Because you just have to play your way to some new ideas.
How do you how do you activate people to do a good brainstorming? Like, do you have like cards or something that because people, I'm enormously brainstorming. Steve knows this. I can just go jumping and brainstorming in 1 second because I love it. But there's some people, it's really difficult to get that change in themselves. And it's probably
Yeah.
between the left and right brain.
I think it comes back to the permission
Hmm.
and creating safety. Um, really, even people creating art for the first, back, it's like, it's okay if you, it's okay if you have a stupid idea that comes out of your mouth in brainstorming. Really, it's full permission to whatever. If you overthink what you're contributing, it's really not, it's going to be kind of stiff, and
Hmm.
you'll be more attached to it if you're thinking your way. But I think if you just come at it from that playful place and permission to not have the answer, to not know where it's going, people don't like lack of certainty, right? And brainstorming, there's a lot of uncertainty, and you have to, it's like being with that uncertainty and just playing and seeing what happens. Like Reese's Pieces, the candy with the chocolate and the peanut butter, that's a good example of two things coming together. I don't think he just sort of sat there thinking, or whoever created it, like, what two things should I put together to make a brand new brand? And he was probably just had a piece of chocolate and stuck in some peanut butter and had a bite. And, oh, what's this? This could be turned into something.
That
So,
willingness to experiment.
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't have to. I see a lot of people trying to guess the right answer in brainstorming, as opposed to either just expressing, throwing stuff out there, the metaphor of spaghetti on the wall, see what sticks.
Yes.
But actually just willing to try. And what you said before was to learn from the attempts to see what is there to take out of it, to stay with a creation long enough to go, I love this, that's really interesting. Oh, that reminds me of,
Yeah.
and then to step forwards from that into whatever's next.
You could bring in some creative right brain stimulus to the brainstorming to help people bridge that. It's like here, give them metaphors. Like think of a bridge. Think of your favorite bridge. Could be in a small town, could be a big city. Just what would that bridge, how would that bridge connect to what we're talking about? So it's what Macalco does a lot of. He's got tons of creativity exercises in a book he's written. I don't know if I have it handy. But forced choice is one of them. So that's what you're doing. You're giving these metaphors and you haven't come up with a forced choice. Then it gives them a little way in instead of to just sit and try to come up with ideas all by themselves. So if you give a, like, let's think about a big lake you love. What would a lake have to do with this project we're working on? You know, if you were to mind map lake, what kind of things how would you connect the two? And it's just, I do an exercise in the card deck class when they're, I don't know if it's just the card deck class or others, but thinking about content and stuff, where I just have a page of words and just circle a word and then mind map it. And they're odd words like spaghetti and water and just random words. And then you mind map it, and then you take all the things you mind map and you find open-ended questions. And it's really, really interesting to create from that. So like trying to think of one that I did. I did a lot of them around like water and maybe water that's where are you underwater? Or what's the depth you're in? Or some other things you might have brainstormed around water.
So like diving, what comes up in
diving
and drinking and rain. I just start going.
Yeah, and then you can make open-ended questions from those, like what's raining on your project right now? I mean, it's just an unusual kind of question, but they'll come up with an answer. So, but then you can create little programs or courses based on these questions.
Yeah.
I mean, or you could get ideas for products. So 10 steps to handle the rain on your parade. You know, I don't know. But
what I'm hearing is it's really becoming your kid again.
yeah,
A kid like and just go. If you ask a group of kids 6, 7 years old, just about, they're just gonna shoot everything that come in their mind. They're gonna shoot it out.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not gonna make sense at all. But then you say, actually, that's interesting.
yes,
You come up with that.
yeah.
This is fascinating. One of the things I'm appreciating about where you're pointing us in this conversation is that as coaches, as leaders, there's opportunities everywhere for us to create stimulus or stimuli for
Yeah.
creativity. And
Yes.
we can get boring and habitual, and we can fall into our little comfort zone. And we start to limit the opportunities for our clients.
Yeah.
And so to kind of reflect on the tips you've given us are a lot of tips, a lot of ideas. I've got 5 or 6 pages of notes about just simple ways that we as, again, coaches or leaders can create that stimulus to think differently, invite new perspectives, new
Right.
ideas, new ways of not just creating results, but also connecting with each other.
Yeah.
And that's an opportunity that we have in our hands. And so when clients
Yes.
are saying, hey, I want to be more creative, how do I do it? Well, what's some amazing tips that and tools that you've given us? I love it. I love it. I got 1,000 more questions, and I could listen to your ideas and stories all day, and that may be for a different day. But right now, for those that, like me, want to learn more, how can people connect with you?
Well, you can always visit the store, coachingtoysstore.com, because we have different kinds of products than the coaching tools company. They're all tangible, not all, but most of them. The other thing is I have a gift that you
Oh,
guys could get if you go to Marcy's free gift, Marcys, marcysfreegift.com. I'm giving you a couple of image prompts. And these are image prompts you can upload on us as a slide on your computer, and then you can share it in a group or even in a private session and with an open-ended question and see where it goes.
Awesome.
awesome.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
yeah, you
On
get a
behalf
feel
of
for it.
everyone listening, thank you very much. What a great first step for those of us that are listening that want to go, well, how do I put this into action? Well, marcysfreegift.com, go there and
Yeah.
take that into the next conversation
All
going
right.
forward. Thank you so much, Marcy. This has been fantastic.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you for all those insights, and thank you everybody for listening in and showing in. And until the next episode, take care and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to The Coaching Edge. Until next time, keep coaching and keep growing.